Hi, and welcome to this, a lecture in the series of lectures on C# programming. This particular lecture will cover scope, local and global variables. And I'm Dr. Peter O'Neill, your lecturer. Okay, purpose. The CEO of a large company does not need to know everything. She deals with the aspects that are relevant to him or her, e.g., the direction of the company is going, the day-to-day running of the company, the manufacturing of products, the distribution and transportation, the staff details, etc., 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 are the individual department's concerns. Therefore, if I am the CEO and I want to widen sales, I may send my marketing team out to investigate possible new outlets. I'm not interested in what they find, just that they can sell more of the products. Therefore, each department has information that is relevant to them. Others may or may not have access to this. Those that need information have access and others don't. This keeps things clear and simple. So diagrammatically, here is our company. Here is the transport department. Here is the mechanics of the department, of the transport department. Here is our HR department that contains the staff details. Now, the staff details, they have all of the staff, including the CEO, which of course includes our transport division and of course our mechanics division. However, those in mechanicking don't have the details of those in transport or of the people of the actual company, or even in who's in HR. So can you see here that those that need information are given it, and those that don't need it, aren't given it. Now you may say to yourself, hold on a minute, what's this going to do with software? Well, imagine, if you would, that each of these circles represents a class or an object. And therefore, we can determine who needs access to what and who doesn't need access. So we can write functions in, for example, the HR department, so it can gain access to information stored about each member of staff in the mechanics section and the transport, and in fact the entire company including itself. But we know that mechanics do not need to know about other members of staff, so we wouldn't let them have access to HR and that department there. And therefore the stuff that's contained within HR, or the actual main database that's contained within HR, is not accessible to the mechanics, the transport manager, or anybody else in the company apart from the HR department. This means that other people can't mess with it, which is also good because there's something out there called GDPR, and data protection rights and so on. So you only want minimal people seeing what's available. So that represents that. So now let's have a quick look in a code type of way. So let's take a quick look at my dialogues class. A very simple class. Okay, so the namespace is my dialogues. We've got an open square bracket, and then we've got the class my dialogues. And then inside there we've got a method that's, notice, public static string, input box, string prompt. Then a default value, and then a return that calls another input box. Now notice the first one is public static. And in fact, the second one is also. So notice that each of the methods are public static strings. Again here, we declare the default value to be returned, and then yet another return with an input box, this time with the 3 parameters being sent. So basically, if we get the last one, here we are, still a public static string, and this time with 3 references. So basically you can call all 3 individually. So you can call the first one with just a prompt, which by default will call the third one anyway. You can call the second one with a title and a prompt, which will still call the third one. And then finally, you can call the third one itself, and that one will then return a value as well. Now, they all return a string, which is static. In other words, it's in a set place. It's not moved around in the memory. So the reference to it will be the same all the time. So that's why we have public. Now, if they were private, we couldn't access them from outside of the class. Yeah, you can only call them from inside the class, if that makes sense. Okay then. So that one's public, that one's public, and that one is public. So we are fully accessible from outside and our base class, which is invariably where you've been calling it from. Let's take a look at the GUI image array class that I have created. Well, first of all, what the hell is it? Well, the GUI image array class is basically a grid of images that is displayed on the base form, like this. And each of these individual squares, the green squares surrounded by black, is one element. So that's an array. It's a 2-dimensional array because we've got rows and columns. Notice that the 4 in the middle are still a single image, but instead of having all green in the middle, they've actually got either a black square or a white square with a shadow on it. And this is so that we can play the game Othello. When you click on an image, it will basically find the image that you've clicked on from the class and return its value to the base class as to where it is within the array. Okay, and that's same for this one and this one and so on. So let's have a quick look at the actual array class itself. So we've got our GUI image array. Then we've got our class array the image array inherits user controls, which basically enable the computer to watch where the mouse is being clicked and then send that information back to the image array. So this is how we instantiate, or this is how we declare the integers for the top left, number of rows, number of columns, the borders, and the element's width. By the way, the width and the height, the height under there. Okay? So we've got all the things that we need. The top left of the box, the top right of the box, the number of columns, the number of rows, the width of a single element, and the height of a single element. So therefore we can get all of the points that we require of each individual cell. Then we've got a public image array, which is the constructor for the class, and we call that, and we send it this form, or this, which is the form that we want it to put the images onto. Then we send it a two-dimensional array called card array. And then we send it the top, the left, the border, and then where we've actually put the images. And this basically then works out dynamically all the grid locations for each image and places the relevant image in the relevant square depending on what is in the int array at that designated area. So for example, in the top left hand corner, it's a blank 10 in each cell, or 1 or 0. Now 10 signifies that it's not a 1 or a 0. That means it is a blank image. And we've got an image called 10. And it puts that into that cell. When it sees one with a 1 in, it puts a white in with a white square. And where it sees a 0, it puts a black square in. And that's how it works out how to do it. And in fact, what I will do is I will demonstrate this to you in a little bit of code in a few moments. And then once it's generated all that information, it then says place on the grid at the form using the card array all the images that it's loaded into memory. We can then use also later on get row and get column. And what we do there is when we click on it, we send the object that we've clicked on, and get row actually looks and compares against all the ones in memory to find out which one is the same object as we've clicked on. And when it does, it then returns the value of that image in the format of the row within the grid that it is. Okay? So essentially we've got a class which inherits a user control. We've then got a private, right? Private means now that those outside cannot change these values. Once they're set, we've got them only in the class, and only the class can now change them. That is this class, the image array class. Public is the constructor, this one's the constructor, and says construct this object, and that's what that one does. Notice this one is public, so therefore it can be accessed through the base class. This one is private because we don't want anybody just putting images on the form. We only want our own class doing that. Whereas this one again is public and returns a value, an integer value saying which row the clicked item is on. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you that in a little bit of code, and then we'll come back and just have a quick look at some other things which hopefully diagrammatically will help you understand how things work. Hi, in order to save time, I've actually sat down and entered the source code into a project to demonstrate the GUI image array. It's called checkerboard. So basically what we end up is with a checkerboard here, which I'll quickly run for you so you get to see it. He says. And this is used for a number of the assignments. This GUI image array. So I put breakpoints now. I'll show you those in a minute. So there you are. So there's your checkerboard. Okay. Now each element of this checkerboard, each square, is a single graphical image. Yeah. So in other words, we've got 64 on here because it's an 8x8 grid. So they're just basically empty squares. Okay, so let's show you now how that's generated. Okay, so first of all, we have to declare IO stream. This is in order to get the path for the images. So we need to do that because it's part of the directory structure. So that's why we include that. Then we've got our GUI image array using, and we add that to our solution by right mouse clicking on the solution and then going to add and then going to existing because we've already written it. I've downloaded it. So you download it from Blackboard and then install it. And basically you click on this and then basically navigate to it. I mean, there it is. Look, I've included it in this one already. Okay, so I'll cancel that because we don't want to add it twice. Okay, once you've done that, if you click on that, it'll come up with this square box. Okay, which is this. So as you can see, I wrote this class back in 2014, and to be honest with you, I haven't really changed it that much. In order to make it easy for people to install one of the more difficult elements, I've actually written in the comments a little bit of how to do that, which is this, and that is to redirect from this class any clicks that are made on the actual object itself. So when you click on the object, it comes to this class to see it. And what I've done is I've delegated that across to what we call the base class, which is actually your form. This is the base class. Okay? So we'll go back to that in a minute. But you'll see. In fact, hold on. Yeah. So also in here is its namespace, the GUI image array, and it also uses the user control. It inherits that. And that is how it gets hold of the mouse clicks for the class itself. Okay. Here you see it says create private void which element clicked object sender from on base form. Yeah. This becomes the event handler for the click on the image. Okay. So that's what this bit does here. So this affects that and thing. There is an event in here. Which element is clicked. Trouble is, can I find it? If not, I'm sure you can look through for yourselves. There's quite a lot of stuff in here. In fact, it would be probably easier to walk down this code like this. But I'll do that in a minute for you. So basically, as shown in the slides, this is our declaration of all the major points. So the one thing to note on is this is the top and the left, number of rows, number of columns, the border. The width is actually the client width minus whatever value you want it in from the edge. And that is also from client height minus whatever you enter from the edge. Okay. Then we've got the elements, which is an array of images, image elements. The GUI, which is the form in which is the base form. And then, of course, the path to the pictures. Okay, so they're all set up. And they're global variables. Now, this one's the important one, because this is the instantiation of the class, which makes it into an object. And it's... oops, sorry. Just move that down. And there you can see, so when we instantiate it, we send it this form, the array, top left, bottom, right, border, and also the where the pictures are. Okay, and it works everything out from that mathematically, or in a synchronized way. So it does quite a lot of working out here. Okay, what I have done is I've said that if the elements are less than 5 in height or width, then put up a warning. At that point, it should really close down the app, and it doesn't. So I might enter that later on. Just update that. Okay, so that's how it basically creates it, and you've seen these things on the slides before. So let's go back to our form, and you can see quickly how it works. So I'm going to we declare an array here. We declare our board, a graphic board. We declare an integer array called checkboard, which has got 8x8. We come in, we initialize the components, and then we call populate the array. Now, populate the array, basically, it populates the array with 1s and 0s, where 0 are black and 1s are white. Minimize this for a second. So here's where our source codes come from. So in checkerboard, under bin, in debug, we've got an image folder, and there we've got 0 black, 1 white. So that's where they come from. Okay, so they're populated with that straight away. And then once we've done that, we then initiate the graphical class, which is what I've created. And as you can see here, this is the form, this is the array, This is top, left, right, bottom, width, and also the path to the pictures. Okay, the path to the pictures are obtained here. So it gets the current directory and then it adds on images to it, and you've just got to add, when you send that to it, it actually appends the picture to the end here and puts PNG on the end. Now this bit here redirects the which element clicked of the class, right? So it makes one, but it tells it to redirect it back to the base class. Okay, and this element here just says update the screen, and it sends the checkbox. Yeah, the checkboard. So it sends the array, and it updates it. What I have done here is I've also written which element clicked, which is sends a sender and an event arg. Now the event arg just looks for if you press the left mouse buttons or you've got control down or whatever. Sender is the actual element that you've clicked on. So in this case it will be the image, and that is also sent then to our graphical board dot get row. And what that does, basically, the get row loops round. So if we look for get row, oh, that's get column, which is the same really. So here's get row. So we get the sender object, and we basically start at the first top left hand corner, and we work his way down, and we say if sender is equal to the image element at R and C, return R. Also return -1. So if it returns -1, then the element's not being clicked on. But it's never going to get to that. But you've got to have it in there because the machine doesn't realize that. Okay, so let's now go back to our code again, and we'll run it, and we'll walk through. So here it calls populate. I'm not going to stop that. I'm going to let it do that. So it'll display it. And let's say we want to click on this one here. In fact, no, let's click on this one here. So this is row 0. This should be row 1. And we click on here. And then if we put on our thing we got there, selected row equals 1. We could also add another one in here for selected border. So let's just selected column, sorry. So let's just quickly copy that. And what we'll do is we'll just change that to col. Okay, so if we now run that again, oops, yep, if we run it again, and then we click on that, let's do something more interesting. Let's pick on this one, say, and then what we've got now is we've got both 4 and 4. So it's telling us what we're clicking on, and just to prove that it's right, I'll click in naught. This should be naught, and naught. Okay, so that's basically how it works. So let's go back to the slides now. Okay, so diagrammatically, how do things work? Well, here's our class for our form. Here's our class for person's details from the first example of the company. Notice our form constructs person equals new person details. So it constructs that. It basically calls that and makes it an object. And the next one, there we are, that's that. Okay? So it calls that to make it into an object. Okay? Now notice in our person class, private string, public int age equals 21. Dream on. What it's saying there is that if you wanted to know my name, it wouldn't give you, you've got to ask the class to give you the name. Yes? If you wanted my NI number, you'd have to ask the class to send my NI number back. And we're sending it back in the format of a string. However, you could just go to the class and say, what's his age? And it will give you that back. And let me show you a little bit of that on this other side. So, on a button, so these are private and public. We've also then got the methods within class of person details, which returns the name, and also one which will get the NI but not return it. So it won't return it to outside the class. Okay? So here we are, button get name. So button gets name, so it gets the person, which is this up here. It gets the method name, which is this here, and it returns the value in the string because it's public. So here it is returning it, and it returns it into the text of txtb underscore name dot text. Okay? Now age can just be got like this. So we've got person, age, so it gets to age, and it's public, so it knows it can access it, and it converts it into a string, and then assigns it to the text box, or the text in the text box of txtb underscore age. Now get NI, because person, get NI, problem. It's private. It won't let you do that. So this actually would have a squiggly line underneath it if we were in real code, because it says you can't do that. Any questions? Please feel free to email me or speak with me during one of your tutorials. Thank you very much.